Welcome to Your Way Now. We're Sue and Sarah, coaches supporting people living with cancer and those moving beyond it. Each episode shares real stories, expert insight, and gentle tools to help you feel more supported, physically, emotionally, and mentally. This is Your Way Now.
Get the strength you want and need from real stories and expert voices. It's time for Your Way Now.
And welcome to this episode of Your Way Now with myself, Sarah, and my colleague Sue.
Hello.
And today we have Duncan and Mel from the Sussex Cancer Research Centre. Had to remember all of that. We're really excited to have you here. And we're just going to open it up as usual for conversational style. But yeah, just to say hello, welcome for being here and taking your time out of your day to come and join us. And just perhaps you just want to introduce yourselves to our guests.
Sure. Do you want to go first, Duncan? Or
Go on, Mel.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name's Professor Mel Flint. I'm from the University of Brighton, and along with Duncan, I'm one of the co-directors of the relatively newly formed Sussex Cancer Research Centre. And my area of research is mainly breast and gynecological cancers.
Yes.
And hi, nice to see you all. I'm Duncan Gilbert. I'm a clinical oncologist at Sussex, at the Sussex Cancer Centre, and have been, for nearly 20 years. I treat lower GI cancers, so patients with rectal and anal cancers at the moment. And I spend half my week up in London at UCL as part of the UCL Innovative Clinical Trials unit there.
Well, thank you so much for those introductions.
Yeah, thank you. So would you like to start off by telling us what Sussex Cancer Research Centre, or SCRC, should we call it? Save our voices. What is it? What are your kind of aims for the centre?
Shall I do an intro to it? And then you can So basically, the Sussex Cancer Research Centre brings together researchers from 4 different places. So Brighton and Sussex Medical School, the University of Sussex, the University of Brighton, and the NHS trusts across Sussex. And it's co-led by Simon Mitchell, who's at the medical school, and Duncan, who you have here, who represents the NHS. I represent the University of Brighton, and Professor Tim Humphrey represents the University of Sussex. And the idea behind this was that actually it came about when Tim moved here from Oxford, and he got talking to people and realised there's a lot of really good cancer research going on, but we're all kind of working in silos. And we said, well, what can we do to get together? And around the same time, Simon and I had been in other, and probably with Duncan as well, had been in other meetings talking about how to build up and kind of show the research that we do and improve links between, cancer researchers and together links with the hospitals as well. And the main thing about it, which I should say, is that for the Sussex Cancer Research Centre is people with lived experience with cancer. So that can be a patient that's experienced cancer or caregiver or family member are at the centre of what we do. That's what we do. And the idea is that we go from the lab bench to the bedside. And then I also joke that we come from the bedside back to the bench again so we can do our research. And I didn't know if you want to add into some of our aims, Duncan, or anything.
Yeah, I think as a oncologist and looking after patients with cancer, research is central to everything that we do, because unfortunately everyone is touched by cancer in one way or another. And we know that at the moment there are lots of challenges. The outcomes for patients are not as good as we would like. And even cancers where we can treat patients really well, we often have side effects that leave patients with long-standing challenges. So the kind of burden of cancer is always there. And as a clinician and treating patients, that sort of need to improve is there constantly. And the answer to that need to improve is research. And I guess over the years, we've had lots of support in Sussex, particularly from the Sussex Cancer Fund, which is our kind of local cancer charity. And between us, we've found different ways to do research, to do new research projects, to find out from patients. But it's been quite a sort of ad hoc way. And each time we've kind of sought local researchers, but not really in a kind of joined up sort of holistic way. And as Mel said, there are loads of fantastic, both basic science, applied science, patient-related science and research going on across Sussex. But everyone's very busy. Everyone's very busy doing their own thing. And sometimes it's kind of amusing and never sort of ceases to surprise you how someone just sort of across the way is doing something really pertinent. And so one of the main things about the SCRC was to try and just join the dots better, try and make it easier for everyone, try and get that sort of cross-institute support, because we're a huge trust. We cover now a huge population across Sussex. So from an NHS point of view, we've got lots and lots of patients, and as I said, with lots and lots of need. But then we've got fantastic institutions in terms of Brighton, Sussex, and the medical school. So it's really the desire to join all of that together. And I think as Mel would say, what's been amazing is how even just over a couple of years, we've kind of found more and more synergy, more and more joint projects, joint ways of working. And it's really exciting. And with the ongoing support of the Sussex Cancer Fund, who've been, really sort of so helpful and supportive to keep funding this sort of work, it's just growing and coming on in leaps and bounds.
Yeah. So a real true collaboration there, in terms of coming together, not duplicating, bringing your sort of joint areas of expertise together for the benefit of the patients. And how have you seen that play out as far as the patients are concerned, the ones that you work with? Has that made it easier for them in some way?
So yes, I mean, it's kind of, it's little steps in terms of actually making it to the clinic. I think it's fair to say, it's incredibly hard doing research and joining that gap from, we sort of use the phrase bench to bedside. But we are constantly opening new studies and involving patients in those studies. And I think a key point, as Mel mentioned, is involving patients from the outset, and that sort of lived experience, and the efforts that have always been here in Sussex, but we've been able to again coalesce around and grow, so that we can hear from patients about the areas that are troubling them, and really feel that we're supporting the local population in that way.
Yeah.
And actually, an example of that, Duncan, is our. So what we've done is we've developed research groups, and so when we held our kind of our main starting symposia, we asked the patients, what do you want to see us researching? And actually, one of the things that came up was the fatigue. The fatigue that they gave us lots of things, but this was one area. And so, based on that, we've set up the SCRC Fatigue Research Group meeting, where researchers that may have an interest or studying in fatigue, that was patient-led. And we also have other groups. We have a breast and gynae group and a blood cancer group and a brain tumour group and things. And patients are encouraged to come along as well. And I guess for us, like Duncan said, we want to be known. We want to do our good research. Now, it is incredibly difficult from having someone identify something in on the bench and then going all the way to the clinic. There are lots of things we have to do, but together we can do this quicker and help patients better. And the wonderful Sussex Cancer Fund have just been amazing at enabling that, supporting joint projects. And we prioritise those projects that link to the clinic or to different institutions together as well.
Yeah. We're big
And I
Sussex Cancer Fund. Cancer Fund fans too, I was trying to say. Yeah. So,
Cancer fund.
yeah. Having that ongoing support must be really important, because you don't want to be stopping and starting, do you? You want to be able to keep the patients involved in a
And I think I think
way.
fatigue's a really good example as well, because as Mel said, it's something that many patients experience, and is a real challenge at lots of different steps of their cancer treatment, both from the sort of acute stages to then really long-term sequelae. So I think also it affects almost all patients, and a lot of research and a lot of clinical research is quite siloed into patients with a certain type of cancer, though the sort of questions across groups is often quite hard to do. And yet from an SCRC point of view, it works really well, because if you just think about fatigue in the different institutions, there's a number of different approaches you could take to it. So there are people who are interested in the kind of patient experience, how you report and how you measure and how patients describe fatigue. Then there's also people who are interested in sort of the physiology of it, coming from sort of exercise medicine or sleep medicine, and so that kind of physiological side, all the way down to the kind of real lab measurement of biochemistry, what's going on in patients' bodies at that time. And so the sort of links that we're trying to develop and grow can bring all those different aspects in, and then link that through to the sort of hospital side, where we actually have patients experiencing fatigue for all the different treatments, and linking all that together into an initiative with a number of different strands and a number of different projects is absolutely the sort of thing we're aspiring to do.
I remember hearing you talk at a conference a couple of years ago, Duncan, as well. And you mentioned, and I remember one of the things that really stood out for me in that was you were talking about as well the research that was going on with gut health. In terms of, sort of, of how, our gut health can impact people on developing cancers, maybe. Is that, have I understood that correctly? And it'd be great to maybe hear a little bit more about that as well, because I'm very much an advocate of nutrition and keeping things healthy in our gut. So, I think that'd be very interesting to hear about.
Yeah, so again, lots of this originally came from my sort of daily experience looking after patients with pelvic cancers, and particularly after they've had chemoradiotherapy. That's very disruptive to people's bowels, and patients would have real upset in terms of bowel urgency and sometimes incontinence and colicky pain. And through talking to patients, it would be very diet dependent. It would change with time. And I think it's one of those areas we don't have a really solid understanding of what's causing that. There's a lot of ideas, and probably each patient is slightly separate. So that kind of piqued my interest, in particular, the sort of links with irritable bowel syndrome and how people are understanding changes in the microbiome. But what's come along since is some kind of remarkable work. We're going off at a little bit of a tangent, but bear with me. So we've become much more interested in how the immune system is affected and may fight cancer. May actually be stimulated against cancer in some patients. And we now have a whole group of drugs called immune checkpoint inhibitors that kind of unmask some patients' cancers to their own immune system. So that's become really interesting. Drugs we can give to kind of, stimulate your body's own immune system to fight your own cancer. And two aspects of that. So one is that it can generate an autoimmune colitis, so a bit like ulcerative colitis. So again, these links between patients with cancer, but other broader, diseases that aren't directly linked. But also, there's some amazing work that suggests your microbiome, what bacteria, the sort of so-called good bacteria you have in your bowel, might actually modulate or change whether your immune system responds to the cancer or not. And this started off with some amazing experiments in animals early on, so in mice, where you changed their bacteria and you could change whether the immune system sort of recognized their cancer or not. And there are now clinical trials of those drugs, so modulating a patient's gut bacteria to see whether that can actually change how immunotherapy works. So it kind of, that's just one tiny example of how huge the field is. You take a sort of question about, well, what about the good bacteria in our bowel, and it sort of opens out into affecting immune system side effects, and I still come back to it. Are those changes in the bowel also, are they important in people having side effects after, say, for me, my patients who've had chemoradiotherapy? And again, through the Sussex Cancer Fund, I've a student who's been doing a project looking into that. So taking samples from patients before and after chemoradiotherapy and looking at how the bacteria have changed. And it's a little bit soon to have any results yet from that, apart from the fact that there are results coming. And again, that's a good example of a Sussex Cancer Fund funded project using local expertise and a question that's really important to lots of our patients. So that was quite a long answer.
Exciting, though, isn't it? It's really exciting hearing about some of this, amazing research. And I think that's so interesting for our guests to actually know. And especially if people are so fearful, there's so much fear around it, isn't there? And to actually know that some of this work is going on in the background, to know that actually there is hope and there is some, hopefully some changes and some newer treatments and things that can actually just provide longevity potentially for people. That's, I get
quality
really
of life
excited.
as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Find that
massive.
amazingly exciting.
Yeah. Well, we as coaches see people all the time, don't we? Their fatigue is the main obstacle from helping them to move on after treatment, because they can't predict how they're going to feel. So it's amazing.
And sometimes the drugs anyway, sometimes
sometimes
those drugs that they're on to help maintain, the fact that obviously they're in remission, but obviously, there's all sorts of drugs that make people stay on for a period of time, can obviously also, bring about such a immense feeling of fatigue.
What about you, Mel? What's your main area at the moment?
So yeah, we're quite excited. We are just completing, it was actually another Sussex Cancer Fund project where we're looking
They're
at...
getting a good plug today,
I was just thinking that they're getting a really good plug.
Fantastic. A donation link underneath.
Yeah, we should do.
We might actually do that.
And no, they did fund this. And we were looking at how stress affects ovarian cancer and drug resistance and recurrence. And so we did a feasibility study where we recruited some patients with ovarian cancer to the study, and we've been monitoring their stress levels through salivary cortisol levels, and through questionnaires as well. This was together with SCRC at BSMS, and then we're hopefully correlating that to disease outcome, and we're correlating that to their immune response. Duncan spoke about the role of the immune response in some of the cancers. He looks like the immune response, has a massive role in a lot of cancers. So we're all very interested in studying the immune system, and so we've just finished recruiting those patients, and we're just following those patients for a year and looking at how they respond. And the other thing that we're doing in the lab is we're taking the patient samples, the bits that the surgeon doesn't want or the pathologist don't want. We bring that kind of on ice. We bring the tumour live to the lab. We create mini tumours, and then we're able to study those tumours, without bothering the patient anymore. Then we can look at those tumours. I study stress, so we look at stress hormones, we look at drug combinations, and so we're getting to lots of exciting data through that as well.
Wow.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. I had no idea this was going on until I attended one of the science fairs at which was Sussex Cancer Fund at the Horizon Centre. So there are people listening to this outside of Sussex, but it's really exciting. For me, as a Sussex person, it was really exciting to know about all this stuff that's going on. And your colleague Simon was talking about the research around leukemia. Absolutely fascinating. So how do people get involved in this, people with lived experience? What's the best way for them to contact you?
We're definitely open to being contacted. If you go onto the website, sussexcancer.org, or you type in SCRC in Brighton, you will see our webpage. And in there, if you scroll down, there's a little button that says Get Involved. And you can join the centre. You can also, I think our contact details are on there as well. So you can contact us as well. And actually, we encourage, I mentioned that the research groups that we have, there was a blood cancer and brain tumours. So you're more than welcome to be involved and sit in that as well, where we discuss research, we discuss, new drugs, we discuss funding and those sorts of things there. And so I think that's about the best way, isn't it, Duncan, to get in touch with us. Yep. So sussexcancer.org. It's a nice, easy website. Simon's just a whiz at websites, so he's done a great job at this. Really easy to navigate, and we do encourage you to get involved. And there is a patient engagement group. I think you mentioned that earlier, Sue, but where we are interested in hearing what patients want to say. And actually, patients or people with lived experience of cancer are really important in shaping our research. So you can kind of be involved in the research that we do when we're writing grants now. So I just wrote a grant to a cancer research funder in London, and we often have people with lived experience that may come on our grant boards and help us look at our data, the questions that we want to ask, and so we really do listen to people with lived experience of cancer,
because it's important to get a wide range of people, isn't it? And
absolutely,
when you're doing research, you want people from different demographics to get involved because they bring different experiences with them. So yeah, and we will be sharing all the links in the show notes as well for anybody who's listening. So just take a look in the descriptions, and you'll find all the links to your organisation.
Yeah, we just want to hear from everyone, really. Don't be shy, even if it's just want to say hello. That's okay. That's what we're about. Have a look and see, and if you've got any questions, and it's absolutely fine. Yeah, and that is a good point. Males and females, we want to hear from different types of cancer, and you raised a good point. We are focused in Sussex. We are here to help patients in the area, but we do also work. Like Duncan goes up to London. I have collaborators all around the country. Actually, we both, internationally work with people to try and tackle this all these diseases together, because you can't do it in isolation. We work so much better together and as a team.
No, I was going to actually ask you about that, about either whether it extends further out than Sussex, actually, because I'm part of I think it's called a familial study from King's College, where I have to send in blood samples like every year, I think, and then I get a long questionnaire to fill out, and I need to do it at the moment, but apparently I've got to measure myself as well. So I've got to get the tape measure out and actually do that, and then send it back. But yeah, it's, so you obviously do link with other organisations further afield as well.
Absolutely, and I think certainly clinical research, and it's one of the reasons why the NHS is so strong in this area, is that clinical research. So at the hospital, we'll have clinical trials open for patients asking different questions, which might be, as I say, might be new treatments, but it might be less treatment, looking to try and improve side effects and things for patients. It might just be collecting data, but those studies they may be generated and started by us across Sussex, but quite often they're national studies. So if for patients with a particular type of cancer, every major cancer hospital in the UK will recruit to that study, and there may be international studies. So it might be a clinical trial testing a new form of treatment or a new approach to treatment, recruiting patients across many, many different countries. So absolutely, there's that level of involvement. I was just going to add, though, before, I think there's a real spectrum in terms of patients both hearing about and involvement in research into cancer, and it goes from kind of listening, learning type experiences through all the patient engagement and the kind of science cafes, and then also events where lots of research institutions, and SCRC being one of those, as Mel said, want to hear from patients and as broad a range of patients as possible. But it also goes to kind of really quite detailed and quite significant input, in that all of those clinical trials I talked about will have patient and participant and public involvement and representatives on them. And so for patients who are really, really interested in perhaps have that time to give, you can become a real kind of expert patient and actually be right at the heart of those clinical trials, discussing what the protocol's like, what the questions are, and how the trial changes over the time, how the results are ultimately presented, and really play a hugely active role. So we're always incredibly grateful to those patients and relatives who give up all of that amount of time, and it's something that it's kind of growing and getting better sort of each year. actually, it's an area where the UK really has a leading role, though. I think we've adopted that partnership approach, which I know medicine hasn't always, medicine can be quite paternalistic by nature. But I think we've adopted that partnership approach, and it just grows each year. So yeah, I would hope that there are huge opportunities for people who want to get involved to do so.
So that's good to hear that there's sort of like different levels of involvement that people
Yeah.
can have. But is there some sort of, for those sort of more formal things that you're talking about there, Duncan, is there some kind of selection process or application process rather that people need to go through? Or do they just get in touch with you and say, I mean, this is my experience, that's what and you decide where they fit best?
Well, it's not really. I suppose I don't decide. It's kind. It's an interesting sort of quite ad hoc, informal way. So there's a group of patients, and so there are some other web links that we can supply afterwards for patients who might particularly want to get involved in research at that level and kind of represent patients on, call them sort of trial management groups or the sort of committees. The other thing is funding committees as well now. So the major charities that sort of award funding into cancer research will all have patient and participant representatives on those committees. And so it's, as I say, it's a growing area. There is more training available. Cancer Research UK and things will often have support days and things for patient and participant representatives. It has been it's been a little bit ad hoc, but anyone who's keen, put themselves forward, get in touch with any of us, and we can find lots of roles for them to do.
Right. Thank you.
I think it sounds really exciting.
Yeah, well,
Really
it's interesting to hear it as well. It's not just the patients; it can be their caregivers as well, because quite often they feel a bit excluded, or my experience, they feel a bit excluded from the process where all the focus is on the patient, the person having the treatment. So to enable them to have a voice as well is really important, isn't it?
I completely agree, and I have that conversation fairly regularly with relatives, because for various reasons it might not be appropriate, or the patients themselves might not feel able to contribute. But actually that, the lived experience of cancer goes beyond just the individual, and it affects many people and families, etc. So that's all really, really important. And I think I think people find that helpful as well. If you can contribute in that way, or feel that you're staying involved in that way.
Yeah, amazing.
Is there anything else that you want to add, either of you, then, before we end today's episode? But it's been an absolute minefield of information, and thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared with us today.
Just thank you for your time, and hopefully this can help people. And do take a look at our website. There's lots and lots of information in there as well. We have a newsletter as well that goes around, and you can hear about the cool research as well. We try and all say it so in a language that everybody understands, and so don't be afraid to get in and see the research that we are doing together.
Well, thank you for sharing it. Anything from you, Duncan?
I just look forward to meeting people at our events, and it's very much a two-way process. As we said, we want to hear back from everybody, and this initiative is very much based in Sussex for the people of Sussex, with a global reach.
Exactly. Thank you for adding that bit at the end. So, well, thank you very much. We'll bring this episode of Your Way Now to a close, but I just really wanted to say yet again, thank you so much to Duncan and to Mel for coming on today and sharing all the very informative information that you have shared with us all today.
Yeah, and please keep up the good work. It's giving lots of people lots of hope as well.
Absolutely,
so
and hope is really important. I love hope, so yeah, it's really important.
We do.
So thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get the strength you want and need from real stories and expert voices. It's time for Your Way Now.
Thank you for listening to Your Way Now. If you have a story you'd like to share, or would like to be a guest, or have ideas about what would be helpful to hear on future episodes, we'd really love to hear from you. Please remember you're not alone on this journey, and your voice really does matter. So until next time, this is Your Way Now.